first one he killed, the second one killed him, and the third one, well, she was just heavenly. Who said Greek myths are complicated? And welcome to another episode of Boring History. My name is Angela and today we're going to be having a look at the wives of Hercules. Before I begin, just the obligatory disclaimer, whilst I am referring to Greek myths and therefore technically should be referring to Heracles, for the sake of familiarity I am just going to call him Hercules. And on that note, let's begin because we've got a lot of women to get through. Now we all might like to believe the fairy tale that Hercules and Meg were the perfect couple, but as we all know, Hercules went on many adventures, and with many adventures come many women. At least when it comes to Greek myths and heroes and stuff. Some sources regarding Hercules actually say he made it as far as India. Pretty cool. But at the end of the day, Disney was right in their portrayal of Hercules as a nice enough guy, so he wasn't just this wanton philanderer. No, he actually did end up marrying a couple of these women that he was associated with. Now, as with all myths and legends, there are different versions, so if I don't happen to talk about your favourite version, please feel free to leave it in the comment section down below. Alright, so enough with all the disclaimers and background information. Today we're going to be talking about three of Hercules' wives. The first is Meg, or Megara, who we all know and love thanks to Disney. The second is Deianira, who kind of accidentally killed him. And the third is Hebe, who was his goddess wife, I guess we could say. When it comes to Megara, there are a few different versions of the myth that survive. However, the most common of these would be the version as told by Euripides in his Heracles. In case you're not familiar with the guy, Euripides is said to be one of the three great Athenian tragedians, as in one of the guys who wrote all the Greek tragic plays. Kind of like operas. The love story between Hercules and Meg begins after the defeat of the Minions. Unfortunately, not those cute little yellow guys, but just a group or tribe or village or whatever of Greek people. King Creon, who was the king of Thebes, offered Hercules the hand of his eldest daughter Megara as a reward for his excellent performance under pressure during battle. Now, Hercules would have been a fool to refuse the hand of such a beautiful woman, so the two get married and go on to have several children together. Several children is defined as anywhere between 3 to 8, depending on who you ask. However, this love story was not to last because one day when Hercules returns home from one of his adventures, he finds that the place has gone absolutely mad, all thanks to this tyrant dude called Lycus. Now, according to some, Lycus was the son of Poseidon. However, Euripides makes sure to clear this up for us by letting us know that Lycus was in fact the son of Lycus. Lycus had decided that he would like to become the king of Thebes, and in order to achieve this goal, he had murdered poor King Creon in Hercules' absence. And just as Hercules was arriving home, Lycus was actually in the process of murdering Meg and their children. Now, of course, Hercules is a hero, so he doesn't waste any time and rushes in to save Meg and his children and kills Lycus with an arrow. Now, obviously, it's quite the coincidence that Hercules managed to arrive home just moments before his family is going to be slaughtered, so in thanks for this good fortune, he decides to make a sacrifice to his father, the god Zeus. However, Hera, the wife of Zeus, is absolutely devastated at the fact that Hercules is not devastated because, you know, his family and that is still alive, so she goes on to cast a spell on Hercules to make him go temporarily insane. And at this point the story tends to diverge and there are two potential outcomes. Firstly, there's the version as per my 12 Labours video where Hercules goes insane, sets his arrow on his children who he thinks are like Eurystheus' children. Eurystheus is like his cousin who he doesn't really like, and the guy who sets the 12 Labours for him. And then in this version, Hercules also goes on to shoot poor Meg. The magic-induced rage actually doesn't end there because Hercules also goes on to try and kill his adoptive father Amphitryon because he thinks that it's Eurystheus' father. But then Athena ends up intervening, knocks Hercules out with a rock, and by the time he wakes up, thankfully the magic spell is worn off. And we all know how the story goes from there. Hercules is absolutely devastated and goes on to complete the 12 labours as a form of penance. But in another version of this series of events, Hercules does kill his children in his magically induced rage, but he spares Meg. Kind of. Because he then actually hands Megara over to his nephew, Iolaus, as a wife. Because, you know, that's a thing you just do. It's all a bit weird, but this handing over of Meg to Iolaus then goes on to be used by various cities as a direct link to Hercules or Meg or Iolaus. Because then they could all be like, wow, our city is so amazing because it was founded by the child of Meg and Iolaus. or something like that. They couldn't use the children of Meg and Hercules because, well, they were all dead. And speaking of dead, let's move on to Hercules' second wife, Deianira. Mostly it's agreed that Deianira was the daughter of King Aeneas, who was the king of Calydon. However, in some versions of the story, it also says that she's the daughter of Dionysus, or Dionysus, or whatever you want to call him. But apparently, Dionysus had been a guest of King Aeneas, and that's kind of where all the confusion stems from. Either way, her mother was Althea, and one of her brothers was called Meleager. Actually, the death of Meleager and his birth, and the whole story surrounding everything, is really interesting. It involves a magical log that can cause death and some other things. Probably gonna do a video on it one day. But for now, the focus is on Deianira because apparently she was a pretty cool chick. She knew how to drive a chariot, she understood the art of war, and when her brothers died, her and her sisters got turned into guinea fowl, but then Dionysus was like, oi, not cool, bro, and then they got turned back into humans. And then Hercules comes into the picture during his trip down to Hades where he was looking for Cerberus. Because while he's down there, he actually bumps into Meleager, who's like, oi, Hercules, can you do me a solid and marry my sister? Because ever since I died, nobody's been looking after her. And Hercules, being the nice guy that he is like, yeah, sure, no worries, and runs off to Calydon to go and find her. Now, once he gets to Calydon, he's surprised to see that Deianira is actually being wooed by a river god, who's taken on the shape of a centaur or a bull or a snake, or something along those lines, depending on which story you're reading. Hercules challenges the river god to a duel. Of course he wins. Deianira falls madly and genuinely in love, and the two end up getting married. Unfortunately, Deianira then goes on to play the starring role in the Death of Hercules by kind of accidentally poisoning him with centaur blood, which may or may not have been mixed with a bit of Hydra blood. But you can hear all about that in my Death of Hercules video. Which then brings us to wife number 3, Hebe. Hebe was originally the cupbearer to the gods before Ganymede got that gig, but essentially it meant that she brought the gods their magical nectar so they could sit around and party all day. It's kind of funny because in one of my books, actually wait, I'll show you. This one, it says Hebe. As the name implies, Hebe is the personification of youth. And I'm just like, what? As the name implies, Hebe, youth. Now, of course, you might be completely fluent in ancient Greek, probably a lot smarter than me, and you're just like, oh, duh. But for the rest of us mere mortals, let's just move on. So Hercules and Hebe hook up in the version of the story where when Hercules dies, Zeus comes down and takes him up to the heavens to become a god. Hercules and Hera kiss, well, not kiss, but they do make up. And that of course means we can't leave poor Hercules all on his lonesome on Mount Olympus. So of course they do the logical thing and give him a bride, voila, enter Hebe. And actually one of the more palatable, more understandable, less intimidating reasons that Hebe is linked to youth is because of her connection to Hercules and his whole rejuvenation thing and how he is able to obtain eternal youth just like the gods. Bless you. Her Roman name is actually Juventus, which also means youth. And I mean, at least that connection is a little bit clearer. Juventus, juvenile. Actually, do you know what? I'm just going to let it go. And we've pretty much summed up the 3 wives of Hercules. Now, as I kind of alluded to, I think, at the beginning, Hercules has been linked to a lot of other women. For example, it was said that he had 50 children to the daughters of King Thespius. And there's also the time where he enters an archery contest to try and win himself another bride, but then he ends up being cheated, having a hissy fit, committing murder, having to do the whole penance thing all over again. Now, all these stories are very viable future video options, but I think for today, we've heard enough. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe because I look forward to sharing even more boring history with you in the future.